California MBA DE&I podcast. My name is Ty Christensen, and I'm the founder and Chief Diversity Officer for Arrive Home, which is a social enterprise that facilitates homeownership through our national down payment assistance and special purpose credit programs for non-traditional borrowers. And I'm also the host of this podcast. Thanks so much for joining us today. First, as usual, I'd like to thank our sponsor, PCV Mercor, which is a nationwide real estate valuations management company. We continue to appreciate your sponsorship and support of this podcast, and we're very grateful. Today, my guest is Kevin Peranio, Chief Lending Officer at PRMG. Kevin has been with PRMG for over 12 years and is also a fellow board member of Access Lending Academy, a founding board member at Access Lending Academy, which is a nonprofit that specializes in lifting diverse talent into the mortgage industry through education and wellness. Kevin is also one of our newest board members at the California MBA, and we are thrilled to have him. So thank you so much for joining me today, Kevin.
Thank you, Ty. I appreciate the invitation to be on your podcast.
Yeah. Well, I know a little bit about you, but let's tell our audience a little bit about yourself. Where are you from, your family, where do you live? What do you guys like to do? All that good stuff.
Sure. I'm a Texas transplant living in California. I went the other way, but I went through Florida. So born and raised in Dallas. I went to school in Austin and started this business in 2001 for a company called First Magnus. I was a wholesale account executive. And I would say from day one, just serving, communities outside my own. And God, what a great business. But yeah, living in California the last 7 years and had a chance to help the two founding members of Paramount Residential Mortgage Group build a national presence. And then, just meet a lot of great people along the way. Man, this last 7 years have been quite a run, getting to be invited as part of Access Lending and this year as part of the California Mortgage Bankers Association board. It's been just a incredibly blessed 7 years living in California. So California's pretty cool. It ain't so bad. So definitely enjoying my time here. And again, thank you for having me on your podcast.
Yeah, no problem. We love California. It is my second favorite state in the country. I am from New Jersey, so that will always be home. Jersey girl, born and raised.
Yes.
Cali's pretty special too.
Garden State. Who doesn't love
New
Jersey?
Baby, Garden State. So as a fellow board member for Access, and I also know you are on the board for NAMBA, which is the National Association of Minority Mortgage Bankers of America. Shout out Tony Thompson. We love you.
Tony.
But you're clearly devoted to lifting efforts and diversity in the space of the mortgage industry. So can you talk a little bit about your diversity efforts and how you're bringing diversity to PRMG as well as the space more broad spectrum?
Yeah, I think, it just comes down to, what people are willing to do and what their intentions are. I've, not to get, into religion, but at least where it's applicable here for me, it just kind of set a foundation of just serving others and being about our communities and helping other people. So I don't say no. I love to help, and I know there's a lot of people out there that can use guidance and advice and even a strong lift. So it doesn't matter who it is. That's just kind of in my nature. I give my parents a ton of credit for that. Married 58 years up until my dad passed a couple of years ago. So that's where it all starts. But in this industry, it's a service industry, right? So, you're serving others and it's always about other people, and you're serving them to get into a house, which is, people want to talk about the American dream and, whether they like that or not. I think most people in our business are pretty jazzed about helping people own a home. And it's really the best way to create wealth and multi-generational wealth. And, we've got some areas and some segments that need to catch up, they need to start. And our company is highly involved in first-time home buyer purchase money. And that's where it all starts. It's buying that first home. And a lot of times it's someone that might be the first, in their lineage to do that. And so that's a special thing. It's a special process to be part of, and it does require a large lift. And so, I would say Paramount Residential Mortgage Group is very intentional about it. Our founder and CEO is of Colombian descent. So we at our DNA are are already diverse. We're pretty much we're in every state but New York. And when I got here as an owner 7 years ago, I've been at the company about 12 and a half years. I had a team together for 3 companies now. Had my own company in the middle and was the first Magnus back in the day. We helped build out the East Coast. And the 2 founders, Paul Rozo and Robert Holliday, asked me to come to California and be their partner and have shares in the company and just help grow. And I remember very early on, now I'm hitting the trade show circuit, right? Now I'm starting to get out there and hear some things. And I was really inspired by Teresa Bazemore and Marcia Davies at an Empower luncheon at the Social Survey Wow Summit. And so that gave me an idea, like, let's go back and give women a voice, at PRMG. And so I brought this idea to our senior management, and we created the PRMG Women's Advisory Council. So we held monthly meetings internally for all of our female employees. Men are invited, of course, and we have guest speakers come on and talk. I got high-powered females. More than half of our President's Cabinet winners are women, and they crush it, and they don't need any help finding their voice. They found it. But I've got someone sitting in post-closing back in a cubicle on the first floor, and they need their eyes open to what's going on out there. They need to know how to negotiate on their behalf. They need to know their worth. They need to know that they have a voice, and they especially have a voice at PRMG. And so we started there. I would say somewhere in that 7 years, I got connected with Tony Thompson. They're about a year in after their first connect, and he invited me to be part of their board of governors. And really, really honored to be part of that team with Tony. And then pivoting back to PRMG, we're stacking our senior management board with really great thought leaders, and just giving credence where the value is. And just so happens we have more women on our senior management board of directors, I would say, not only than any company in this industry, but probably any industry. So
wow.
Yeah, it's just elevating people when there's when it's totally deserved. And again, being intentional about who you hire. In Atlanta, it's a very diverse market, so hire diverse managers.
Yes.
Give them a P&L, let them run their business within our platform, and reach out to their community, and then back them up with whatever's necessary. Sometimes you've got credit challenge borrowers, you've got credit invisible borrowers. Yes. You've got to be intentional about the programs that you do, the guidelines you put out, the risk you take. It's a lot of risk taking on loans where people don't necessarily have the best credit, or are in a market where it's tough to get into a home. And so we do a ton of Ginnie Mae manual underwrites. We do a ton of down payment assistance programs. Little tidbit, the Cal Halfa Dream for All program came out. There's $300 million in funds that were authorized for the state of California for that program. PRMG had 87 million of it locked up within the first 10 days to 2 weeks. So yeah, we think we did a good job of helping low to moderate income borrowers get into a house with that, that free money. And then I'll just add, then along the way, I got, invited to be part of Access Lending Academy with Paul Gelati, who's our fellow board member, not just at Access, but also, at the California MBA. And, I've been friends with him since I've been in California, and I just love the way he thinks and his mind, and openly gay male, very intentional about educating those and lifting others up that maybe, majority of the old guard, if you will, in our industry might not, go after or even look to. And so, it's who you hire. It's who's your immediate sphere of influence. You might not even know that your sphere isn't diverse, right? And so if you're just always looking to within your circle, and then as you get older, you keep your circle smaller, then you're less and less diverse, So,
yes.
It's just all these kinds of things are I guess just initiatives and thoughts and things that I've done personally to help our company, to help our communities and our board, just in the last 7 years. So can't wait to see what the next 7 years bring.
You've brought up so many things that I felt like were so powerful. And even just talking about Access for a little bit, I got passionate about Access after speaking with Paul. And it's hard not to get passionate about anything after speaking with Paul, because he's such a passionate person. But just this idea of bringing in diverse talent and actually teaching them from the ground up about the mortgage industry, they can use their life journey to create new programs and products that we are going to need as an industry over the next 10 years. I know everybody's read the demographics and the racial demographic information that's been coming out of the census, but by 2040, we're going to be in a majority minority country, specifically with the Latino population really pushing forward the #1 demographic in our country. And we need products and programs that will assist our communities of color, because to your point, we have issues with credit score challenges because the Black and brown community use credit very differently than the white community. We have the credit invisible. We have the underbanked community. And all of these people are still making timely rental payments. They're still prioritizing their housing expense. And so we've got to create new and innovative ways to service these groups of people that can be sustainable and responsible homeowners. But unfortunately, right now, there's a lack of market products that are available to these diverse segments. And we really, really want to reach out and uplift this community into home ownership, because to your earlier point, that is the #1 vehicle for generational wealth in our country. And so we don't want to have our minority populations kind of like cut out of that fold.
Amen. No, well said. I mean, it takes intent, and and look, I mean, just kind of cutting down, real deep here is that thank God we're not in an election year. Next year is going to be an election year. So then, so everyone, to me, this is about emotional intelligence, right? So, when you hear a word like intentional or diversity, equity, and inclusion, by the way, remember, it used to just like a year and a half ago, it was just DE&I.
Yes,
right?
now it's DEI.
So it was just diversity and inclusion, right? And I remember hearing a pretty cool quote. I'm on the Mortgage Banker Association. They have like an Empower internal email group, and I get all these messages. I get to see them. And someone wrote that diversity is inviting someone, to the party, and then inclusion is asking them to dance, right? And so, I know, isn't that cool? And I love to party and dance, so like it really resonated with me. So, I love it. I love having a good time. I love music. I love getting out there, and it's a good time owning a house, right? And so then they add an E, right, for equity, so it becomes DE&I. And I love how equity is right in the middle. Our business is built on equity. Equity, not just what's fair and your fair share. And again, these are all buzzwords. So give me how to tie it all together. But the equity part of building wealth in a home is really resonates, obviously, with you and I and everyone in our business. So, I thank God we're not in a political year, but I just maybe give some advice before we get into next year, because what happens is political parties, they like to use buzzwords to ratchet people's up, their emotions, and get them to go vote. And I get it. They're just trying to get their candidate in. But, it takes a lot of emotional intelligence called EQ to have a conversation, whether you're conservative, whether you're liberal, whether you're from Texas or California, whether you're any color, male, female. When you hear words that next year are going to be buzzwords like intentional, DE&I, those kinds of things. But in our business, it's take the emotion out of it. You know what? We're trying to help people get a house. We're trying to create wealth. We're trying to build communities. Those things, although can be emotional in the process, they don't have to be politically charged.
No.
And so, the good thing, though, I will say that whatever people's intentions are in this business, there's a lot of money motivated people. So you take out all the colors, a lot of people in this industry like green. And, and so, that's a great color for everyone. It's one we can all agree on, that, we're trying to create wealth. And that's a good thing for everybody, no matter what color you actually are. So, those kind of things that motivate me. And I think it's great that, this podcast exists, that this conversation gets elevated, because at the end of the day, no matter what your intentions or motivations are, it's just good for everyone to have more homeowners.
Yeah. And you know what, to your comment about green, I've often said in my speaking points, if you don't want to diversify for, the good of the country and the feel goods behind it, diversify because it's going to affect your bottom line. Because
Right.
as we get into this browning of America, we are going to lose the 45-year-old white male consumer that works the W-2 40-hour a week. That is the demographic that is rapidly shrinking. We have a large demographic of entrepreneurs, cash-based businesses, Zelle, Venmo-based businesses, people of color out here really grinding in the streets. That's where the new money is coming in. So if you want to keep the green rolling in, you got to figure out a way to outreach to that community. I mean, it is what it is.
Hey, I like to joke, when people bring up white male, I don't feel attacked. I said, look at me in August, I'm really dark. I'm Sicilian, I tan pretty good, but it's another great demographic segment. Obviously, Latino is the largest and fastest growing first time homebuyer segment, but so are single women. And single women is a very powerful segment. And so think about, we were kind of talking before when we were prepping for the call. We have president cabinet award winners. These are our top originators, our top account executives. They're more than half women. Because I would say that someone that has that analytical thought, but can also communicate and can be able to be organized, and not to stereotype too much here, but like, let's be honest, like I'm just not as organized as my wife. She's just, there are some inherent things. That's the other thing. It's like being intellectually honest in these conversations. Let's call some things for what it is.
Yeah, call it out.
But that's also why we have a women's advisory council to find your voice as a female. So if you take your inherent powers as a woman, and then you enhance it being an effective communicator, which in sales, basically it's all it is communication. You're now the top. I mean, you are our top performing, president cabinet winning originator, and you are speaking to a female that's single, that's trying to buy a home. And it's such a huge first time home buyer segment. So, it's just another group that's in there. And that's regardless of color. That's just, specifically gender.
Yeah, the single female head of household demographic is increasing faster than any other demographic. So it's really amazing to see what women are doing. We're putting our heads down. We're creating our own families without men. Not that we don't need y'all. I'm not going to say that, because the second something breaks in my house, I'm calling my husband. Like, I'm not that female. Hear me roar. I know I can Google schmoogle it, but I don't want to mess up my manicure. So I'm going to call my husband. But no, we really are coming into this space where a lot of women are taking it on their own, and they're becoming homeowners by themselves. And I am here for it. And, we've got Marsha Davies at MBA, who is incredible. We just had Christy Furco as the chair, who was amazing.
I
right?
love Christy. Christy.
Outside of Alana McCargo, outside of Sandra Thompson, outside of Marcia Fudge, I mean, we've got all these examples of strong women in our industry that are really paving the way for females to feel confident to make these decisions for ourselves and say, I can buy a house. I'm making the money. I don't need to rent. I can increase my equity and increase my wealth for myself. And maybe I'll have a child, maybe I won't, but I will still have this wealth, for me within the form of my home. So, okay, final question to you that I ask all of my guests. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, and your younger self would take this piece of advice and listen to you, what would that be?
Well, I know it sounds so basic. It's just save more money. It's just save more early, right? So, God, I made so many mistakes, in the business when it was so good in 05, 06, 07. I mean, literally money was raining out of the sky. We just had that in 2021. And, it was coming out, of everywhere. You're just spearing loans out of the sky, as a buddy of mine used to say. It's hard not to feed into like, well, I'm so good. Look at my money is justifying how good I am, but save it, right? Save more early, especially in your early 20s, right out of college is when it's the hardest to save. But, if you look at, let's just take Warren Buffett, for example, nobody wants to get rich slowly, and it's not timing the market, it's time in the market. So if you have money set aside that's saving, it's building up compound interest. They say is what the ninth wonder of the world, or whatever the saying is. So if you save early, by the time you get to that first time home buyer age, which right now is about 33 to 36, depending on which poll you look at, you have the down payment to get into the house and create wealth. You may be able to even get into the house sooner. I bought a house at 25, I believe. So right before I turned 25. So if you save early, then you have the chance to get that down payment and get into a home, because I'm telling right now, homes are not getting cheaper. They are getting more expensive, which means that wealth gap is dividing. Look at Europe. Look at Europe. They're great, a great, example of where we're going. Now you can buy a smaller home. You got to move further away.
Sure.
Hey, I bought my first little condo in the barrio. It wasn't the greatest, but you know what? It was a step, the bottom step in that ladder. And so, saving money is a very powerful thing. We teach financial literacy at scale. Who do you have in your ear telling you, save your money, save your money, save? I know I sound like, a parent, but I'm just telling you, as a 46-year-old man with 4 kids, it does not get cheaper. Save your money. You need that house. You need that money. You need that nest egg. And I'm just telling you, like, I don't know how to make it click, because in my 20s, it didn't click as much as it should have. I wish I would have saved more. And I think I did all right comparatively. But yeah, please save. It is power that you get to hold to open doors, literally.
I mean, I could not agree with you more. I heard this saying some months ago, and it stayed with me ever since. Not having savings turns every unforeseen expense into a crisis situation. And that really just rocked my whole world, because it's so true. When you don't have any reserves and then anything happens, it automatically becomes a crisis and a series of choices. Whether the choices are, do I make my rental payment or my housing payment, or fix my car, or do I buy prescription pills this month, or take my child to the doctor? When you don't have reserves, it really does turn everything into a crisis. And it's, it's interesting that you said about 05. I got into the industry January of 03. Kind of, did all the dirty work as, I was a contract loan processor. So I was really in the trenches there for a while. And then 05 came, 06, 07. I couldn't even keep up. I was like, this is the amount of the volume of the work I was getting was just insane. And the amount of money you make in those years is absolutely insane. And of course, I'm super young at this point. I'm just out of college. I'm, brand new in the industry, only been in it 3 or 4 years. And it's all been Grady train years the whole time I was in it. And then came 08. And I was like, oh my gosh, wow.
4 years of struggle. I mean, it was tough.
It was brutal. And so I was obviously in the mortgage industry. My husband is an architect. He owns his own business. And he kind of already knew that this was going to come, because he'd been in the industry longer than me. And it really rocked me. And he said, just think of the mortgage industry as a wave. It's going to go up, and it's going to go down, and then it's going to come back up. And knowing that you can ride the wave if you mentally prepare yourself for the fact that it's going to crash out again. And so the last 2 years, when everything was, once again, volume, couldn't keep up. In the back of my mind, I was like, it's going to slow again, So I think that's an important point that you bring up for all of our viewers and for anyone that may watch this.
My dad said in 08, after everything crashed, he goes, son, you didn't make the wave, but you looked good riding it.
I love your dad. He sounds like an awesome guy.
Oh, he was so cool. Yeah, he was cool.
Awesome.
Good advice. He also said, a fool and his money are soon parted. And every time I spend money on something stupid, I think of that in the back of my head. That's that Catholic guilt, right?
Yep, that's exactly.
It's like someone's in the back of my head telling me, like, like that meme of Jesus going like this. Like, that's always in the back of my head. Like every time I mess up.
Well, Kevin, thank you so much for being our guest today. I hope you all enjoyed this interview as much as I enjoyed interviewing Kevin. And we will see you all again next month for the California DEI podcast. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Ty.